is my homeroom class. So they're in here most of the day.
Most of the day. No,
I think you know this one. Yeah.
I know that one. Look at that. Let's get that out of here. Make sure that's off because it'll go off about 20 times. Okay. So, classroom pet, huh? Anybody like nervous or never been around one?
No.
You never been around one? Does anybody? First of all, let me start this. Does anybody not know who I am? You just want to start with that, just in case.
Nope,
Somebody
we've
like,
never
there's this
had
garden
some.
gnome up there talking to us. I don't know who it is. So, okay, you know who I am. All right, guys. So we won't go through the introductions. All right, I'm going to take this off. Excuse me. There we go.
Whoa, I forgot.
Uh-huh.
Lucas, you need
So,
one of those.
all right. So this is Mufasa. Mufasa is a bearded dragon. Now, bearded dragons come from Australia, and they're a very common pet lizard for a lot of people. Anybody here got one? Anybody? Nobody? No? Okay, so all right, it's all right. They are common, and a lot of times I'll go to shows, and a lot of people consider them, you know, like, oh, why do you bring that? That's boring. Because you know, I have like over 200 animals, so I get some pretty wild stuff. And so a lot of people see a bearded dragon, I got one of those. They're boring. But a lot of people don't understand when we buy a pet. Okay, we go to the pet store, we get a pet. They tell you some things about the pet, but they don't tell you everything about the pet because they don't know everything about the pet. That's your job in getting the pet, not relying on the pet store. So what happens is I get a lot of these guys back. In 1 year, I've gotten over 100 of these animals back. Why do I get them? Because they're sick. Because the pet stores didn't sell them the right stuff, tell them the right stuff, and you, the individual who bought the animal, didn't do your homework. See, we can blame the pet stores all we want. We can go to Petco and complain about them and all, but it still comes down to you. You guys are going to get an animal, you have to learn everything about it. And it's really important learning everything. When I mean everything, I mean everything. I mean learning not only how to take care of it in captivity, and what it eats and all that stuff, what it needs to thrive. I'm talking about what it's like in the wild, where it's from in the wild. If I ask any of you, where does a guinea pig come from? In the wild. Not the pet store. I don't want you to go from the pet store. Where does a guinea pig come from? Anybody know? A hamster?
Hole in the ground.
A neon tetra. A fighting fish. A betta. Yeah, see? We get these animals that we know as pets, but we don't even know where they come from. How can you take care of something if you don't know what its environment's like, what it's like in the wild, what its behaviors are? What if this animal did something that's naturally a wild behavior, but you never see it in captivity? So when you do see it, you're like, oh my goodness, I gotta go to the vet. And you just spent a lot of money for the vet to go, that's normal. So it's important that when you get any animal, I don't care if it's a lizard, I don't care if it's a cat, dog, frog, a horse, a bird, you learn everything about it. Now, the cool thing about the bearded dragon is a lot of people don't know. They're common, a lot of people have them, a lot of people get them and they're sick. When we get them, unfortunately, Mufasa here is one of the ones that came out unscathed, but just unwanted. And a lot of people don't realize these guys in the wild. So in captivity, I can do this, right? I can walk around. I mean, these guys are like therapy animals. You can walk around with them. You can sit there, read a book. They'll hang out with you. You know, they may come up and just lick you in the nose. You know, whatever. Might go check out your mask if it's colorful. You can eat that. And so they're really inquisitive, and they recognize people. They recognize voices. They recognize everything. So after a while, if you call by Mufasa and you do it the same way, you'll be like, talk to me. So they're not highly intelligent, but they're smart enough to know. And so these guys do make great pets. And the reason why is they're born in captivity. We don't take these guys from the wild anymore. When I was your age, they were all wild caught. And they stopped wild catching anything out of Australia, basically. Australia has a very strict laws on what can go in and what comes out. So they don't allow exportation of the animals, which is good for Australia. But when I was your age, these were all wild caught animals. And when they're wild caught, there's a lot of problems. One, they're full of parasites. Yeah, they're loaded with parasites, because in the wild they're eating all kinds of things, and parasites are natural, and so you get them in, they're already sick. They're stressed, because where's Australia compared to Maine? Yeah, and so to pack up, catch this guy in the wild, throw him in, and it's a whole really complex process. because one person goes out, catches them, fills up a bag full of them, they're fighting and climbing, trying to get, and then they take them, and they go and they dump them at this facility where they just house them all, and then they get distributed out around the world, loaded on the planes, shipped in cargo holds that are way too cold, flown to America, they come to the wholesalers here, then the wholesalers then take them and go through and try to water them, have to take out all the dead ones, because a lot of them never made it over, and then they try to sell them off to the stores. And by the time they get to the stores, they're so sick. When I was a kid, I mean, you never saw healthy bearded dragons. They were never baby ones, definitely. Now you go to Petco, all you see is little babies. We started breeding them. We learned how to breed different animals over time through educating ourselves, because back then the pet stores just sold the things. They had no clue of anything, even how long it had been in captivity or anything like that. And so we had to start treating them, demiting them, taking mites off of them, ticks off of them. And we take these animals and eventually we start breeding them. But the problem was with wild animals is a wild animal's scared of people. You're a predator. You're big. And this guy's sitting there looking up at you going, ah! I was just in the savannas or the scrubs of Australia. And now I'm here in a cold, dry climate. And so these guys were very scared and stressed out, and a lot of them died. And you can tell behaviors when they're stressed. In captivity, what are you doing? There's a little ball over there. Anyhow, these guys in captivity, they're relaxed, and we know when they're stressed. Their beard gets black, they kind of look just dark in color, but he's relaxed. He's used to being handled and stuff. Wild ones would never do that. They'd always be dark, and they'd always be scared. There's behaviors now we don't see from bearded dragons because now they've been in captivity for 30, 40 years. We've been breeding them that long, and they're doing well now. So every one you go to the pet store buy, it's born here in the United States. It's going to be the first thing it ever saw was a human being when it hatched, looking at it going, hey little dude, welcome to the world. And so we get a quality animal that we never used to have. And we're not taking it from the wild, and that's important. We're not harming the ecosystem in the wild. So one of the things you never see for bearded dragons in captivity that you'll see in the wild. So say you get off the plane in Australia, right? And the first thing you're going to do is you get off the plane and you're like, I'm looking for a bearded dragon. Right? You see a bearded dragon and going, oh, look, a bearded dragon. You couldn't pick him up and stick him to you. He's not going to let you do that. He's going to be scared of you. He has no idea what you're going to do. Even if you don't mean to hurt him, he's going to be scared. So what this guy's going to do, he's going to sit there and see you coming at him, or any predator, and he's going to flatten his body out. Yeah, he just flattens right out. And he turns it sideways. That way it kind of looks a little bigger. And on his shoulder, he's got these little dark patches. And they're on each side. And they lift up. And they get black. So now it looks like two eyes looking back at the predator. And his beard puffs out. And that beard puffs out. And he gets black. He opens his mouth and he looks at the animal and he goes, ah. Well, sometimes the predator might be like, I'm not eating that. And he's like, and stuff. And so the predator might back away. In some cases, the predator's like, I'm still going to eat you. This guy has to be ready. So, you know what? This is what we never see. Because they're never scared in captivity. It's captivity, they're very, very rarely scared. They don't do any of that. So what happens is, the predator says, I'm still going to eat you. He has one thing left he can do. Get up on his back legs and go, ah! And run away as fast as he can. And then he finds a nice place to hide. He gets flat. And when he does that, he gets underneath something. If you look at his body, he's got all these spikes on the outside. So he's underneath something wedged in there, and the animal's sniffing around for him, and all of a sudden, there he is. Ow! The guy's a cactus. And he stays safe as long as he keeps those spikes locked up. Because he can lock them, you can touch them all you want, but he can lock them out where they're actually, I've actually done that without face shield, and gone like that, and somebody would be like, you're bleeding. It's like, oh, because they're sharp enough to poke your skin. So, but we don't see that behavior in captivity because they're born in captivity. They're not that stressed. The most we might see is their beard getting black. So if you see him up here and his beard is black, now the question is, why is he stressed or why is he angry? You guys might have to figure that out. It might be something like, oh, a mirror. A mirror might do it. He doesn't know it's him, just sees another threat. At my center, I have to often put shields up for bearded dragons because if they see each other, they do that. They just get mad at each other and bobbing and they want to fight. So, all right. So he is a lizard. He's cold-blooded. They are very, as you can see, I'm walking around, I made them scream, and oh, by the way, they don't scream. Okay, I don't want you to think like you're gonna go to Australia and see lizards going, ah! They don't do that, okay? They're quiet, they just do this. So, as you can see, he's very chill, very relaxed. I mean, you can put him on your shoulder. Now, if you are handling him, please make sure, you're ready, because he can jump. I mean, I know him well enough, that's why we use him in classrooms, is because he's pretty mellow. But it's best if you're sitting down. So there's a lot of things, and I brought food, I brought an extra light bulb, because they do need to eat. And the one thing I wanna say with the light bulb, real quick, is do not put it over the plant, because it might melt the plant. Keep it to this side where the log is, towards the front, it'll be fine. Nighttime, we can shut it off, it's got a little switch on here to shut it. You can shut it off, or if you leave it on, it won't hurt anything either. He'll sleep with his eyes closed, he doesn't care if the light's on or not. So, other than that, he's a reptile, so he's cold-blooded. So if it got extremely cold in here, you'd really need that heat lamp. But he can tolerate cooler temperatures. So he's okay with this. He will need water, even though he could go all week without water, because where he lives is very arid. And he takes a lot of his moisture in through the food he eats. And he eats greens, and he eats super worms.
Hey, Steve.
Look, you're screaming in your seat over there.
I'll sing it. Hang on.
I saved you all. I didn't bring the cockroaches.
Aww. I'll do eat that for my snack.
We'll do that in case someone has a question or they want to email me. We'll slip that right there. And then we brought here. You sit up here for a moment. Thank you.
Run away. He just jumped when we sit in him. Whoa.
And then we brought crickets. We got crickets. And the crickets have food and water. And simply we can just take this little. Oh no, he's running away! Oh Lord! Anyhow, you can just take this out and shake it in because there's crickets in the stoops. They hide it. So you don't even have to touch the crickets unless they jump on the floor. You put that right there because if he sees them, he'll go nuts. Now, let's see if we can do this. Here, we'll get you off the screen. Read this. All right, I can get out of the way there. Fetch.
Yeah, eat it. Get it. Make him stand up. Get it.
The question is, how much does he eat? Well, he is a cold-blooded animal, which means we are warm-blooded. And that's a totally different thing. We often keep cats and dogs and we think, oh my goodness, they eat every day, we gotta feed them every day. He can go weeks and weeks and weeks without eating. He doesn't need to eat every day. It's okay to feed him every day, but if you're gonna feed him every day, small amounts. What we normally do is a rotated diet, so we do insect, and the next day we might do vegetables. As they mature, they eat more plant material and less insect. So, I know, before you look at that bag and say, I'm gonna eat that. Through the bag. So, he's like, no, I'm just waiting out on the bugs. It's a bug day.
Oh, we love some good food. That's what that is.
So, these guys eat a mix of things, and a lot of them are herbivores. And being cold-blooded is different. I'll be right with you. Being an herbivore is totally different than being an herbivore. Being cold-blooded is totally different than warm-blooded. Our body temperature is 98.6. But anyhow, we won't talk about the biology of that. Anyhow, so 98.6 is your average temperature of a human, and that means in the summertime when it's 95 degrees out, we don't have to eat. We sit there and go, well, I'm gonna have an ice cream, I'm full. Or I'm gonna have a salad, that's good enough. Oh my God, when you look at the time, I missed lunch. We don't think about it. But winter comes, what do? We eat big meals, we have big roasts, we have soups and chowders and stews, we eat all kinds of things, and this is when people start gaining the weight in the winter, and they go, oh my goodness, I gotta lose weight for summer, get my bathing suit again. Right? That's because we're warm-blooded, and so we need to keep a 98.6 body temperature, we have to eat. And if it's already warm out, we don't have to eat because our body's not working hard to keep us warm. His body temperature is regulated by the air around him. So if it's 100 in here, is that mine? I'm hearing buzzing.
No.
I think that's from the.
Oh, is it?
Okay, anyhow.
You can elect.
I know, because my mom vibrates too, so I know. Anyhow, so So if it's 100 degrees in here, his body temperature is 100 degrees. If it's 50 degrees in here, his body temperature is 50 degrees. They need a heat source to stay warm. So a lot of times reptiles will bask in the sun. They'll go out, and they might be dark colored when they're really cold. Because why? Dark colors absorb light and heat. And if they start getting warm and warm enough and too warm, they lighten up because they don't need to absorb any more heat. So they thermal regulate by going and finding warm spots. So he doesn't need to eat. He eats to move, which he's been sitting here for a while now, so he doesn't do much of that. He eats to breed. Well, it takes two to tango, and he's by himself. And he eats to heal damaged tissue. He's not hurt. So he doesn't really need to eat. Most people kill their lizards with kindness by overfeeding them. We get a lot of them, and we have one right now that's majorly obese. And the problem with that is, you know, his kidneys will fail, his liver will fail, his heart will fail, it will kill him. So reptiles are designed to starve. It's better to underfeed them than overfeed them. Now, you guys don't have to worry too much about it in a week's time. It's not going to be an issue. So, you know, if you feed them, just because it's cool to feed them, it's okay. But again, if you're getting one as a pet, it's better not to feed them every day. Or again, if you do every day, just small amounts. So that's the difference between warm-blooded, cold-blooded, reptiles and mammals, and anything else. You had a question.
Yeah, does he have a crooked toe on his back leg? That looks like he does.
This one you mean? Well, the lizards often have longer toes, and that's for wrapping and holding on. So like if he's climbing on a fence, that actually wraps around. It's good observation. And it's meant, and if you look at the tree-dwelling lizards like iguanas and water dragons, they have longer toes because they are always in the trees, so they need those long toes. Most lizards, though, like he can climb, that's how he holds on. So, you know, he has a little bit of longer toe to reach around branches and things.
So Jenny, you have our first question, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What are the benefits of having an animal in the classroom?
Benefits of having an animal in the classroom. One, they are therapeutic for some people, especially if you, say, have anxiety. I mean, and you're stressing about things, say, and you've got a bearded dragon sitting on you. It's pretty cool. You know, you might be able to focus a little more. It's almost like having a fidget toy or something like that where you need, you know, I just don't use it like a fidget toy because he doesn't like it if you're like shaking him around. But I mean, you know, it's very soothing if he's sitting on you and stuff like that. It's calming. So there's that advantage. There's always the biggest advantage is education. Because he's here, you have to learn about him and stuff. And so you might go, okay, so he comes from Australia. It's a big continent, it's a big island. What part of Australia? You know, you go to Florida, you're not gonna see moose. You come to Maine, people wanna see moose. So, you know, that's the thing is, you know, even though he comes from Australia, I didn't say where he comes from. So now we can learn geography, and we can learn geopolitics, because why? They can't export them. Why can't they export them? There's laws in place. Why are those laws there? Or you can learn, well, like I said, just simple science of the things I was teaching you, which was, you know, the difference between warm-blooded and cold-blooded. So there's a lot of advantages education-wise. You can learn the Latin name, the Greek name. You can learn all kinds of things. That's the beauty of it. You know, why is one diet better than another? There's different things. You can do observations, like just noticing the body and why those toes are longer, doing that research. There's also observations to what does he like better. I've done things, especially with tortoises, where like we get real young kids. You know, they're not gonna look into geopolitics and they're not gonna look into geography. They're too young, you know? But they can take a tortoise, you can give a tortoise a red strawberry, an orange carrot, and a green pepper. And put him down and see what he goes for. If he goes for one thing all the time, now you saw him go for it, try it again, but mix them up. Did he go for the red strawberry again, or did he go for something different? And then you can start doing basic science by observation and see what does, you know, and now the question is, would all tortoises do that, or just this one? So you gear it down to a level that younger kids can understand. So each age group can do a different thing. So I think that was some basics why they're good in the classroom.
So Reese, you have our second one?
How does having an animal in the classroom benefit the animal?
Social interaction would be the answer. Does the animal care if it's here or at my center? I suppose if you're neglecting it here, it would. Their intelligence is different than ours. So, you know, this is all a new environment. That's why we choose certain animals because we know that they're a reaction in new environments. So I've got some bearded dragons that wouldn't do well in a new environment. They're not used to it. This guy is. So to him, doesn't matter if he's here or there. But the social interaction is good because everybody is different, and it teaches them, you know, different smells, different things, different. You all look different, you know. I don't know if he even rationalizes the difference between you two, other than color maybe or something. But again, certain animals might benefit from the social interaction. Some animals might not benefit from it.
As far as I'm concerned, it's usually like types of pets, what kind of
He's a bearded dragon.
bearded dragon. It's probably one of those things where we'll have to like let it sniff you instead of just being like, oh hi.
Well, yeah, you should let it get to know you and stuff. This, like I said, this guy's not, I don't have to worry too much. Even if you put your finger there, sometimes it'll just lick you. And it's just getting to know you. It's like, who are you? Okay, I know you.
Lucas, you got our last one? What types of animals make good class animals and why?
That's a very full question. There's a lot of answers to that. The best classroom animal is the one that the teachers are the most experienced and comfortable with, first of all, because ultimately, she's the one taking care of it. You guys might be involved in it, and then she can divvy out, you know, today I need you to make sure that food and water, you know, and tomorrow it's your turn, and then I need you to regulate, make sure the lights are on, and, you know, I mean, she's gonna divvy that out, but it's still her responsibility. And like you guys go away, say if it was a classroom pet, like a permanent classroom pet, who's taking it on the weekend? What's happening? Is it staying here? Like, this guy could stay here all weekend, he'd be fine, he doesn't care. But if you had a hamster or a rat, you might have to take it home, because it needs water, it needs food, they're warm-blooded, they will go through a lot of stuff that this guy would just kind of like sit quietly and chill out. So it really depends on that end first. Then there's what happens in the summertime, because you want to take it home and take care of it and bring it back next year. Some kids look forward to that, you know, because Miss Renner has this in her classroom, I can't wait, because I'm going to be in her class, you know. Some animals thrive, like rats. Rats are great classroom pets. They're intelligent, they're wonderful. They don't escape. They'll hang out with you. They're kind of like, you know, bearded dragons, but they're actually like smaller dogs.
And you can make mazes for them.
Yeah, you can do all kinds of things. Again, going back to what can you do with it? Tortoises are interesting classroom pets. Insects, I love insects. That's my favorite thing. I love insects. I think insects are so, if I was a teacher, a science teacher in a class, I'd have like so many well, I do actually have so many now. I have it in my center. I love insects. They're so cool. But most people just find them annoying. And I find insects one of the most diverse things in the world. I mean, there's 84% of animal life is insects. So you really can have some fun with the insects, sort of showing life cycles and things like that. So there's a lot to the benefits of having them and what animals are best. And each thing can have an advantage, and each thing can have a disadvantage. Like for this, we pick out animals that we want to know are socialized. We pick out animals we know are easy to handle, that won't require a lot. There's some animals that I would never bring here, you know, to any classroom, not just here.
Tiger.
Yeah, tigers would definitely be one. I don't have any tigers anyhow, so.
You can tell he doesn't really care that his tail's between your arm and your chest.
I mean, that's one of the, like I said, you can just sit
Nice
there.
and
After you
calm.
find yourself rocking, while you're talking, doing something.
All right, guys, we'll wrap it up.
Are we allowed to like
Any
hold
last-
them?
That's a great question, Jen. I was gonna ask that question.
Yes, but
But.
you need, yes, but
But.
with permission. I don't want you guys all like passing him around like he's a hacky sack. Okay, I mean, he is a living thing and stuff like that. And if you're gonna pick him up, so he's on the table, try to pick him up with both hands, support him underneath, because if you just kind of pick him up and flick, he's gonna get nervous. Will he bite? It's the most common question I get with any animal. Does he bite? Any animal with a mouth can bite. You can bite, he can bite. Do not bite him, and he will not bite you. If he does bite you, though, I do give you permission to bite him back.
Yes.
No, he does. He shouldn't bite you at all. If he bites you, it's because you did something. And that's what everybody asks me too. Mr. Drew, do you get bit a lot? And if I'm not paying attention, animals always warn you. So if this guy puffs up his body, his beard gets black, and he's looking at you, don't stick your finger in his face. He's gonna bite you.
And I can bite it
Then
back.
we gotta figure out what you did to get him angry. But other than that, he doesn't do that.
It's like
So if you
it's
pick
like
him up,
like
both
it's
hands,
like-
both hands under him, or if you're gonna put him on, he does have sharp nails. So if you're wearing a thin t-shirt, you might feel it, you know, but hold him up against you, you know, and I'm walking around casually with him, but he knows me, so you've got him like this, you find it best to keep your hand on him, just to make sure he doesn't take off. And if you see him trying to get away, you know, again, get him with your hands, but just bring him back to a flat surface. A lot of times he has to settle down. It's just he might not be comfortable the way you're holding him. So.
All right, guys, we gotta wrap it up so we can eat snack.
What if he jumps under the table?
He should be fine.
Okay.
He might, scurry up, but these floors are slippery, so it's hard. So the only thing he's gonna need right now in here is water. He doesn't need it this second, so if he doesn't get it, it's not a big deal. These are the super worms here. The crickets are over there. And that's some good food.
Just jumps up and he's like, I flew!
And I've got
He's like, he'll get a running start and jump like that really fast.
The emails on there, so if you think of questions you want to ask.
So it would actually be funny if he did jump on them.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the other Emily. I was
No,
like,
that would be like,
soaring.
someone would just like jump.
stay in your seats for right now.
All right. Oh, okay.
Alright, everybody there, ready?
Back, right?
She is coming back. No,
I don't know, I know her, so
She's going with you.
No, she's not.
She would love that.
Ready?
All right, guys, we can quietly get up and get our snack.